You can hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Are you an applicant or which city?
I am a commissioner.
Oh, how are you? Doug Weltman.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Leawood Planning Commission regular session meeting for Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. Can the clerk secretary call the roll, please?
Commissioner McGurran?
Here?
Commissioner Belzer?
Here.
Commissioner Hoyt?
Here.
Commissioner Block?
Here.
Commissioner Stevens?
Here.
Commissioner Carlberg?
He's on Zoom. He was.
He is there.
I saw his picture. Scott, you out there? I saw him out there. We'll count him in.
And Chairman Coleman?
Here. On the dais, we have a revised agenda. Can you please speak to what changed on it?
Sure. This is the latest version of the agenda. Number 4, the swearing in, was just the wording was edited a little bit. That's the only change from the posted agenda from Friday.
Okay.
Carl Bird's here now.
Okay, Carlberg's here. Just
Yeah.
for
My
the
camera
record, all are
freezes.
present.
Yeah, my
And we
camera
do have a
freezes
quorum
on
this
me
evening.
Sometimes.
With the revised agenda, are there any other changes, by the way?
No,
Besides
there were
that?
not.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve tonight's revised agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hoyt,
make a motion to approve the revised agenda.
Second.
second Commissioner Block. All in favor of approving the revised agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Tonight's revised agenda is approved unanimously, 9-0. Item 3, approval of the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes, one from November 28th, 2023, and the other from December 12th, 2023, both regular planning meetings. Are there any revisions to the November 28th set of minutes? Okay, I have one on page 2. The vote was 601 instead of 501. Any other changes? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes for November 28th?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Block.
I move for approval of the minutes as amended.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Belzer. All in favor of approving the minutes for November 28th, 2023, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting minutes for November 28th are approved unanimously, 9-0.
Mr. Commissioner, I think there are only 8 of us.
I'm sorry, thank you. Let the record show the minutes and approval of the agenda is 8-0 for both.
Mr. Chair, just for clarification, since we have not sworn in a new planning commissioner, would that be 7-0?
Oh, you're correct. Thank you.
Okay, I just want
7-0.
clarification for the record. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Next up are the minutes for December 12th, 2023. Are there any changes to the meeting minutes? Okay, I have one on the approval of the agenda section. It was a unanimous vote, 6-0, and add my name as voting on that one, please. Any other changes to the minutes? Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Block.
I move for approval of the minutes from the December 12th meeting as amended.
Second.
Second, thank you, Commissioner. All in favor of approving the December 12th, 2023 meeting minutes as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Meeting minutes are approved, 6-7-0. Okay. Up next is the swearing-in ceremony of the new planning commissioner. On last week's meeting of the city council, on January 16th, the city council approved the new planning commissioner of Christopher Franze. And Commissioner, Mr. Klein will do the swearing-in ceremony.
And I'll invite Krista to come down. Here's a copy for you. And then if you just repeat after me. I, Chris Franze,
I, Chris Franze,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge the duties of as a member of the Planning Commission
and faithfully discharge the duties of a member of the Planning Commission
for the city of Leawood, Kansas. So help me God.
for the city of Leawood, Kansas, so help me God.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Chris.
I know that Mayor Elkins, one of the reasons for his appointment of someone of your background is because you're an attorney, and we are losing 2 attorneys, so we're happy to get another attorney back on. I want to just give you a minute to introduce yourself and your background to everyone on the commission.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Chris Franze. I am a real estate and development attorney with the Stinson Law Firm in Kansas City. Grew up just across state line in South Kansas City and lived there. Other than 7 years, I was down in Norman, Oklahoma, doing my undergrad and law degree, and am now a resident here in Leawood with my wife and our 6-year-old daughter, 3-year-old son, and 10-month-old son.
Well, welcome to the
Welcome.
commission.
Yeah, happy to be here.
It's not normally as warm as it is tonight, so just want to let you know, this is abnormal. I don't remember it being this hot.
Ever.
Ever.
Is somebody checking on that?
I don't know. Is anyone checking on the temperature, by the way?
Yeah, let me see if I can.
It's almost like it's
Okay. While he's checking on that, could the secretary call the roll of the new planning commission?
Commissioner Franze,
Present.
Commissioner McGurn,
Here.
Commissioner Belzer,
Here.
Commissioner Hoyt,
Here.
Commissioner Block,
Here.
Commissioner Stevens,
Here.
Commissioner Carlberg,
Here.
and Chairman Coleman.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. Going to item 6, cases continued to February 27th, 2024 meeting. Case 8623, Leewood Development Ordinance Amendment to Section 16-4-3.7, Special Uses Designated. Request for approval and amendment to the Leewood Development Ordinance pertaining to the sales and storage of propane tanks. Case 112-23, Hallbrook Country Club, temporary golf pro shop and cart storage tents. Request for approval of a special use permit located south of College Boulevard and west of Overbrook Road. And case 115-23, East Village Phases 5 and 6. Request for approval of a revised preliminary plan located north of 135th Street and west of State Line Road. Continued to the March 26, 2024 meeting is case 12-24, Leewood Development Ordinance Amendment to Section 16-4-7, Landscaping. Request for approval of an amendment to the Leewood Development Ordinance pertaining to tree banking. With that, we'll move to item number 8, the consent agenda. Because of a Case B is a potential conflict, what we'll do is take cases A and C together on the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove any of these cases from the consent agenda? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hoyt,
make a motion to approve the consent agenda as recently modified.
second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Block. All in favor of approving the consent agenda of cases 0124 and cases 1124, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. The consent agenda for those two cases is approved. We'll then take up case 0424. Commissioner Franze would like to remove himself for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion on case 0424, Leewood South, Franze Residence, residential emergency 24 kilowatt generator? Okay. Any discussion? Anyone would like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Belzer?
I move for approval of case 04-24 Leewood South, Franze Residence, 12303 Pawnee Lane, residential emergency 24 kilowatt generator, request for final plan located south of 123rd Street and west of Cherokee Lane.
Thank you, Commissioner Belzer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Block. Any discussion? All in favor of approving case 0424 Leewood South, Franze Residence, residential emergency 24 kilowatt generator, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Case 0424 is unanimously approved. And Commissioner Franze is back, let the record show. That takes us to Section 9, New Business. Case 0524 Leewood, Lucas Residence, 8453 Meadow Lane, residential emergency 26 kilowatt generator. Request for approval of final plan located south of 83rd Street and west of Lee Boulevard. Mr. Klein, who's taking this one?
With planning staff.
That would
Cameron.
be me, Cameron Ewing.
Thank you, Ms.
Planner
Ewing. I did not realize it was generator night here at the Planning Commission.
one. Quite a bit tonight.
Go ahead with your presentation, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is case number 05-24. This is a request for approval of a final plan for Lucas Residential Emergency 26 kilowatt generator located at 8453 Meadow Lane. The applicant is Sarah McDonough with Generators for Sale, and the property owner is Greg Lucas. The request is regarding a final plan to install a permanent emergency generator at 8453 Meadow Lane, a single-family residence within the Leawood subdivision. This property is zoned R1, planned single-family low residential, that is consistent with the comprehensive plan as low-density residential. This property is surrounded by RP1 zoning completely on all sides. It is a part of the Leawood subdivision. The Leawood subdivision and its residential uses will be surrounding this property. Brook Beatty Park is located southeast of the property. The 26 kilowatt generator is approximately 20.1 cubic feet in size. It will be installed adjacent to the southeast corner of the residence within the rear yard, excuse me. The generator will be located 2 feet away from the home, as well as being powered by a 1 1/4 inch natural gas connection. The manufacturer specification sheet does state that this generator will operate at 67 decibels at 23 feet away. That noise decibel will only be emitted during power outages. In test mode, the generator will generate 57 decibels at 23 feet away. With this property, the closest property line is to the south, approximately 15 feet away. Landscaping is being proposed to screen the generator as well as diffuse any noise. Currently, there is a solid wood fence within the backyard that will add to diffusing of the noise. There's also a screened patio to the north of the proposed generator. This will help mitigate noise as well. The applicant is aware that the generator must meet that 60 decibel limit at the property line, and if that test does not pass, the applicant is aware that additional noise mitigation must be provided. The landscaping proposed shall consist of 4 Nellie Stephen holly bushes. These gallon sizes will range from 5 to 7. The 3 holly bush plants will be located along the southern edge of the generator, and then there will also be 1 holly bush on the east side of the generator as well. These bushes will be planted within 2 feet of the generator, which is an LDO requirement. The holly bushes shall be at least 29 inches in height. That is the height of the generator, so therefore they must be at least the same height or taller. And then there is no proposed lighting with this plan, and staff would recommend approval of planning case 05-24, Lucas Residential Emergency 26 kilowatt generator located at 8453 Meadow Lane,
Okay.
with the stipulations listed in the staff report.
Thank you, Ms. Ewing. Is there any questions for staff? Commissioner Hoyt?
Since we just approved 2, which seem to be very similar cases by the consent agenda, is there something different about this than the other 2 that I'm not seeing?
The 2 that were on the consent agenda were well beyond that 23-foot distance for the noise decibel that is provided in the spec sheets with the staff report. The Rome generator actually was providing a 4-foot wall, or 4-foot, cedar fence also that would help with screening and mitigation. And that generator is going to be about 41 feet from that side yard property line. The other generator, which was the Franze generator, would be over 30 feet. The specifications that are in the staff report show that at 7 meters, or about 21 to 23 feet, the decibel rating is at 67 decibels and would continue to dissipate the further you get away from that generator. So the logic is that with the screening and the distance, that those generators will meet that 60 decibel requirement at the property line. This particular one is being brought for the Planning Commission on new business because this one, I believe, is 15 feet. So it is much closer. We just want to make sure that the Planning Commission is aware that this one has a little bit of special circumstance with the closer distance to the property line.
But apparently from the presentation, you feel like that will be mitigated by the various things that you're stipulating need to be done.
Correct. We're hoping that with the screening, the landscape screening, that noise will be mitigated. Now, upon installation, the residential inspectors will actually go out and do a test run, and they'll have a decibel meter. They'll stand at the property line and make sure that it does meet that 60 decibel rating that is required by the Leawood Development Ordinance. If it does not meet, then the property owner or the applicant, they need to beef up that screening to ensure that the decibel rating of 60 is met at the property line. And they'll do a run for like 20 minutes or something like that, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Any other questions?
Same question.
Commissioner Block?
So what would that mitigation be? You said just more plants, and I guess, do you have any confidence, I guess, or assurance that that will happen?
Well, the
Reduce the sound.
assurance is that they would not receive final certificate of occupancy until that 60 decibel is met. So that could be increased plantings, that could be maybe an increase of, so they're proposing the holly bushes, which is a type of evergreen plant. We could require maybe additional evergreens that have maybe a much tighter, like a plant construction. They also could do a 4-foot fence that is also allowed in the Leawood Development Ordinance. And if it still is concern about meeting that 60 decibel, there are additional noise attenuation measures that can be placed on the back side of that fence with like padding or something like that to help absorb that sound. So we'll work with the property owner until we can get that 60 decibel.
Thank you, Commissioner Block. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I'd like to invite the applicant up to the Planning Commission. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of case 0524?
There is no additional revisions to that one.
Okay, good. Sir, can you please state your name and your address for the record?
My name is Q with Generators for Sale. We are on 3603 North Kimball Drive, Kansas City, Missouri, 64161.
There you go. And you're representing the applicant tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any presentation or would you like to make any statements to the commission?
Not that. Is there anything specific that you are wanting to see or know more of?
Okay. And I'll invite the commission to see if they have any questions for you. Are there any questions of the applicant's representative? Yes, Commissioner Block.
Well, I mean, I guess just maybe it sounds like, there's going to be something else that's going to have to be done besides the plantings probably. So, is there not a better place, from the sketch that we have, next to the air conditioners or on the back side of the screen-in porch, the yard looks pretty deep. You'd probably be able to hit that 20 feet, I believe, I would guess.
The issue would be being able to run the generator cable and gas line to those other spots is where it would just be a lot more difficult, along with the screen-in porch. Since it is a screen porch, we can't really have it next to there at all. So the closest place where the generator would still be within 5 feet of the house is right next to the AC.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Block. Any other questions for the applicant? Sir, there are stipulations along with the application, 7 stipulations. Are you in accordance, are you approving of the 7 stipulations? Do you have any issues with them?
I do not, no.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Any discussion on case 0524 by the commission? Okay. Anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hoyt.
I recommend approval of case 05-24 Lucas Residential Emergency 26 kilowatt generator at 8453 Meadow Lane with the 7 stipulations attached.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoyt. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Stevens seconds. All in favor? Any discussion? Commissioner Block.
I mean, I guess we just have to, as Michelle said, I mean, assume that staff's going to be able to make it right. I mean, I guess my concern is the homeowner, I'm not so concerned about, the noise inside the screened-in porch, but, the neighbor is pretty close, and it's, they've selected a spot that's about as close as they could to a neighbor, which is unfortunate, but, again, I got to trust that staff will, city staff will make sure that it's, meets the sound requirement.
For staff, just a question while we were discussing this. Has there been an instance where you've gone out and the emergency generator has made too much noise? And
It's usually the building department that is there and they do the test. And so I haven't heard of any of them that have not been able to. And I believe I've asked as far as Travis if he's run into anywhere it wasn't making, and he indicated that it was not. This one, I think, as far as with that solid wood fence that's along the property line, along with the holly bushes, will probably be okay.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving case 0524, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Nay for against, any nays? Case 0524, Lucas Residential Emergency 26 kilowatt generator is approved unanimously and will be sent to the city council for approval. Up next, case 0624, Village of Leawood, Kislau, residents, 2144 West 89th Terrace, residential emergency 26 kilowatt generator. Request for approval of a final plan located south of 89th Street and east of Lee Boulevard. Staff like to make a presentation.
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Ms. Ewing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is case 06-24. This is request for approval of a final plan for Kislau Residential Emergency 26 kilowatt generator located at 2144 West 89th Street. Again, the applicant is Sarah McDonough with Generators for Sale. The property owner is Bert Kislau. This request is regarding a final plan to install a permanent emergency generator at 2144 West 89th Street, a single-family residence in the Village of Leawood subdivision. This property is zoned RP2, which is our planned cluster detached residential district. This is consistent with the comprehensive plan designating it as medium-density residential. The surrounding zoning of this property is primarily REC, planned recreation, and RP2, planned cluster detached residential district. The RP2 surrounding is also part of the Village of Leawood subdivision. Again, this 26 kilowatt generator is approximately 20.1 cubic feet in size. It will also be located in the rear yard. This generator will be adjacent to the northeast corner of the residence and will be placed approximately 2 feet away. The generator will be powered by a 1 1/4 inch natural gas connection. Again, the manufacturer specifies that the generator shall produce 67 decibels, 23 feet away from the generator. That noise output is only during power outages, and during test mode, the generator will only generate approximately 57 decibels at 23 feet away. The closest property line with this property is located to the southeast, approximately 20 feet away from the generator. The applicant is proposing landscaping around the generator to screen it from view, as well as diffuse any noise. The applicant is aware of the 60 decibel requirement, and if that doesn't pass that 60 decibel test, additional noise mitigation will be provided by the applicant. This landscaping will consist of 4 Nellie Stephen holly bushes with gallon sizes of 5 to 7 each. They will be planted on the perimeter of the generator to screen and help with noise. There is no lighting proposed with this plan, and staff would recommend approval of case 06-24, Kislau Residential Emergency 26 kilowatt generator final plan with the stipulations listed in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ewing. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will invite the applicant up.
So the homeowners.
I'm sorry,
reached
sir,
out to
can
me
you
and-
please state your name and address again, since this is a new case?
Yes, sir. Q, the generator's for sale. Address is 3603 North Kimball Drive, Kansas City, Missouri, 64161. The customers have reached out and they wanted to change their screening. They're wanting to do 5 trees instead. They're wanting to do Taylor upright junipers, so just to add a little extra screening, and rather than just the 4 holly bushes that was originally planned.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, I'm just going to ask that question. Go ahead, Commissioner
So
White.
is that in addition to the holly bushes, or is that instead of the holly bushes?
This would
Instead
be
of
in replacement.
It's instead of.
replacement.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay. With the change, do we need to put anything in the record about changing of the shrubbery?
Staff does have concerns regarding these upright junipers. We looked at what type of trees these are, and they are very tight, compact, and they only get about 2 to 2.5 feet in width. So staff has concerns that the 5 that they're proposing isn't going to be a sufficient screen around the generator and mitigate, to screen and help mitigate some of that noise. I would believe that many more would be necessary and probably planted on more of a staggered pattern to get that screen that would be sufficient to meet the ordinance. Staff did include in the staff report a stipulation to add another holly bush at the corner of that generator because the 4 that they were proposing, staff didn't believe that that was sufficient to, even with those hollies, and the hollies have a nice big spread, they get nice and big, and it definitely does require some maintenance on the property owner's part, so they don't grow into the generator, but the holly bush that's a type of evergreen, the juniper is a type of evergreen. Staff just doesn't, has concerns that the number that they want to put in would be sufficient to provide that screening.
I think as far as if we modified the stipulation to state that a sufficient number of Taylor junipers would be planted to fully screen and also as far as muffle the sound, that we could do that in place of where we have the holly bush, if that's really what they want to do with the Taylor junipers. The Taylor junipers will grow a lot taller, and they're also fairly dense. We're just concerned that there won't be enough of them with 5 to circumscribe that entire generator.
Okay, what is your thought on that with changing the stipulation to putting that in?
That's just what the customer was wanting. She talked to a landscaper at Suburban Nursery, and that's what they were suggesting. So if the noise level at the property line is over the 60 decibel test, then we would request the homeowner to add more trees, add more Taylor uprights to mitigate the noise.
Is that, the junipers, is that normal to have a juniper around that for noise deadening, or?
We've seen a variety of different types of plant material around them. Junipers have been used before. Again, these will get quite a bit taller, and they are fairly dense. It's just that they don't grow real wide. So I think it has probably the ability to block the sound. It's just, again, we were concerned that they just don't grow that wide, so 5 might not be enough to do it. If it ends up that 5 are, then I guess they're fine, but if it doesn't, then we'd want additional landscaping around there, or maybe even they could also do a fence, which would also help block. I also wanted to make everybody aware as well, with regard to the testing and the equipment. The testing actually, when they test it, it doesn't put out the full amount of noise. it actually is 57 decibels. So even at the generator, when they're doing these tests on a weekly basis, it's already below as far as the requirement of the 60 decibels at the property line. When you'd really hear these is when power's out and when they're fully going. And that's where we're trying to muffle the sound to make sure that it meets that even in those situations.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner McGurn.
So for staff, given all of that, wouldn't it be smart to specifically specify the number based on your staggering concept of what you think would be appropriate and begin with that?
I think it'd probably be hard to guess as far as how many would be to do that. I think it would be a little bit easier for us if we just required that it fully screen the generator around in a staggered pattern. And that way, because I don't want to guess wrong, I don't want to say 7, or if I said 10, that might be too many and they might end up with a lot more.
It just seems like the challenge is going to be that whatever's put in is going to be fine because it's going to be at 57, and we're never going to know until the person a year from now or a month from now or 5 years from now has their generator running, and the reality is that the noise is excessive. And then at that point, it's going to be winter, and they aren't going to be able to plant anything, you know, so we've in a sense succumbed to something that we didn't think was right from the beginning.
Right, and when they do test these initially, they will test them at the full output. So when the building department is out there and they're actually testing as far as the decibels, that will be at the full outset. However, these tests on a weekly basis for 20 minutes, and that's what I was referring to with regard to the 57 decibels.
So are you now saying that when they do the initial testing, they are able to put it at full power as if the power was off and it's using everything it needs?
Correct,
Oh,
correct.
well, that's
Yeah.
a different story.
Right, because then they'd know right away.
That's great.
Sorry, let me get to you in a second. We're still, any other questions for the applicant? I think I skipped over to the discussion pretty quick. Okay, no more. Go ahead, Commissioner Block.
Mark or Michelle, I just have one more question. You know, so the applicant indicated that he would have the homeowner add more bushes if it needed more for noise, but maybe how I read the LDO here, the screening is more for sight, not noise. So if staff determines that you can see the generator too well with 5 plantings or whatever it is, that's not going to cut it. They're going to need to add more so you can't see it.
Correct. So the stipulation should actually refer to the screening because you're absolutely right. It's supposed to muffle a little noise, but it's also there to screen the generator from the adjacent properties as well.
Okay, thank you.
Is the applicant okay with the 8 stipulations? I assume without number 5 we'll have to discuss. Are you okay with the other stipulations?
Yes, yes. And then if needed, I can also communicate with them that fencing is needed on the property side where it's next to their neighbor.
Okay. Any discussion?
So just as an option or clarification, since the plan does say, under landscaping, 3 holly bushes will be planted, blah, blah, blah. It sounds like the applicant is asking, and that's what it shows in their plan too, you know, shows holly bushes specifically mentioned. It seems like we would need to see a new landscape plan because, or how do we procedurally handle that when, you know, the applicant is asking for a different, you know, an entirely different set of circumstances than what their own plan has shown us?
I think it would be a situation where if you wanted to, you could say prior to governing body consideration, they'll provide with the tailored junipers. I think probably the important thing is that stipulation regarding the screening and the buffering be changed to fully meet as far as it'll be fully screened from the adjacent property and and the decibels shall not be more than 60 decibels at the property line, which we currently do have.
So it would say prior to governing body consideration, a new landscape plan
Shall be provided.
shall be provided to reflect planting of a sufficient number of tailored juniper trees to provide the visual and sound screening required in the LDO.
Yes, that actually is a good way to word it.
Good job.
Did somebody write that down? Okay,
It's on the
good.
recording.
Yeah. Play that back.
Any other discussion on the case?
Sorry if I may. I have emailed the updated landscape plans to Cameron already. I'm not sure if that's going to be okay for today's meeting. That way you guys can have it all there and can visually see it as well.
It sounds like that might be enough for today's meeting, but not enough for the governing body meeting.
Correct. I mean, essentially, if they've emailed it, we'll take a look at it, and then that would be included with the packet that goes to the governing body. The other option would be that the Planning Commission continue this to allow us time to print that off, let you see it, continue the case, and then reopen the case and then take a look at the landscape plan. But I think as far as with the stipulation, as we were talking about being stated, I think that they could submit that and then would have that to go to the governing body at their meeting.
That's reasonable. Okay. All right. With no further discussion, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hoyt.
I make a motion for approval of case 06-24, Kislall Residential Emergency 26 kilowatt generator, 2144 West 89th Terrace, with a revised stipulation number 5, and I'll try to recreate my revision, but if it differs from what I said before, you can check the record and change that. Prior to governing body consideration, the applicant shall submit an updated landscape plan which contains a sufficient number of tailored junipers to provide the visual and sound screening required in the LDO.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Belzer. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. All in favor of approving case 0624 with the change to stipulation 5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Case 0624 is unanimously approved to the City Council. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item C, case 1024, Leewood Village, request, excuse me, for approval of a revised final plan located south of 86 Terrace and west of State Line Road. Staff have a presentation?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Ewing?
This is case number 10-24, request for approval of a revised final plan for Leewood Village / Leewood Heights, located south of 86 Terrace and west of State Line Road. The applicant is Doug Weltner with State Line 87 LLC. The property is owned by State Line 87 LLC. This request is regarding a revised final plan for Leewood Village to alter the townhomes in the development. The applicant is requesting to modify the front entrance staircases, rear facade, and rear yard fences of the previously approved townhomes. This property is zoned MXD, Mixed Use District, which is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The proposed changes are as follows. Number 1, the entry staircase on the facade of the townhomes, on the front facade, excuse me, of the townhomes have been removed from the exterior of the building and moved inside of the units. All front entry doors for the townhomes will now be on the ground level. Where the front doors were previously located, there will now be a balcony in replacement of that. Next, the rear facade of the townhomes. The applicant is proposing that sections of brick veneer are to be replaced with a stucco. These materials were approved with a final plan approval on November 1st, 2021. The previously approved plan approved the use of stucco on 21.1% of the rear facade. The proposed change would increase that percentage by 42.9%, bringing the new percentage of stucco up to 64%. And then number 3, each townhome unit will now have a deck and stairs in replacement of the previously approved balconies on the rear facade. These decks will have a staircase going from the second floor to the ground level below. Due to potential grade changes, the length of the stairs leading to the rear yard may vary slightly. And also, the walkout basement doors and windows have been removed from that rear facade as well. There's no new lighting proposed with this plan, and the previously approved parking plan has not been adjusted. On the rear facade, the applicant is proposing to replace large sections of brick with stucco material. Staff is not supportive of replacing brick with stucco on the rear facade of the townhomes. Brick shall remain in the areas on the rear elevations of the townhomes as currently approved elevations show. That is called out with stipulation number 2. On the dais, there are interdepartmental memos. Those were included on the packet online, but they did not make it into your printed copies, so those have been provided. Also on the dais is a memo from staff regarding an additional stipulation to the Leawood Village case, That stipulation reads, prior to the issuance of any temporary certificate of occupancy permit for Leawood Village, the applicant shall submit an application for a revised final landscape plan for the entirety of the development, providing screening for all of the utility boxes on site. Staff would recommend approval of case 10-24 Leawood Village, Leawood Heights, request for approval of a revised final plan with the stipulations listed in the staff report, as well as the addition of the stipulation from the staff memo. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ewing. Before I open it up for questions for you, can we get a visual of before and after? I think that would be helpful for us to see what we approved previously and then what they want to do, both the front and the back. So do the front first, before and after, and then the back, please. This is the original proposed plan. The previously approved one does have the staircases on the external part of the building leading up to a second floor entryway. This is the new rendering of that previously approved plan. You can see looking here. Can you change the darkness? Did that help? Yeah, just for our purposes up here on
Okay.
page 2, there's displays on
Yes.
before and after, as well as on page 3.
Okay, let me grab that page and
There's a big one, it's a big fold-out version.
The graphic that was included in your staff report will show the front elevations. Oh, I've never used this before. Okay. The green boxes will highlight the front facade changes on this one. Looking here, you can see that the staircase is now internal to the building. That second floor door has now been moved to the lower floor. Where that door was previously, there is now a balcony.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner McGurn.
When you look at this photograph,
Yes.
I think this looks better than the stairs on the outside. I think it's a dramatic improvement. But what I'm curious about is if you were to open one of those doors, your point is the stairway begins there and goes up onto the first floor of the home.
Yes.
Okay, obviously, they don't show that because you can look through the picture and you don't see a stairwell, you see a couch and a bush and all that kind of stuff in the kind of the middle of the page. So they are giving up some internal square footage by putting this staircase on the inside as opposed to the outside, correct?
Yes, from my understanding, that space that was below the staircase was for storage, so.
This case, it was below the staircase. On the outside, when it was on the outside?
Excuse me?
When it was on the outside?
Yes.
Okay, that was for storage. Okay, I'm just trying to reference the fact that that it's not going to look like this picture shows, because if you were looking through the middle window in the middle of the picture, you'd see a staircase coming up or no furniture where the staircase would be, correct?
I can ask the applicant if he would like to speak to this.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Block.
While she's there, could she please show where this is in relation to the rest of the project, where these townhomes are?
Let me grab my other plan.
Thank you.
Development. This is the overall development. State line is running north-south on this section. The townhomes are located back here. And let me zoom in. Townhomes are here, 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 and here. So there's 3 along the north and 1 along the west.
Thank you.
Okay, and on the back side?
Yes, that is currently what's on there.
Okay.
That's okay.
This is what was previously approved, this top section up here. The section below is what is being proposed with changes.
Can you move that up just a little bit so we can see the bottom? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner McGurn.
What is staff's perspective on either a requirement for the stairs in the back based on them being removed from the front, or the possibility of retaining the balconies in the back and not having the deck and stairway out the back?
I believe as far as, and we'll probably have the applicant kind of expand on this a little bit, it's my understanding that basically there are stairs currently on the currently approved. It's just that the stairs go straight out. They don't take that L shape that they're showing on this one. I think staff is all right as far as having that deck and with the staircase going down to the yard in the back. Our primary concern was with regard to the replacement of the brick with stucco and making it more or less all stucco except for that base that goes along the bottom.
I completely agree on the brick, but if we look at the picture on the top, what was approved doesn't include a stairwell of any sort, does it?
Yes, this is the rear.
But it does include the walkout basement.
Right, so there's an exit point. Is this?
And the walkout basement is being removed for what reason?
And actually we'll have the applicant kind of
Okay.
explain as far as kind of the inner workings of it.
Thank you very much.
Can you also show us where the brick, what is the situation with the brick versus stucco?
Yes, so if you're looking at this top diagram, these sections that are highlighted in green, that whole facade section of that lighter color is currently brick
Okay.
on the pre-approved. On the proposed, that brick has been lowered down to that section at the base.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions for Steph? Commissioner Block?
So what are the darker buildings? What were those before? And, because it looks now like brick is kind of the wainscoting on all of them, but
So on the previously approved plan, both that dark color and this color were brick. With this one, there's no changes proposed to that darker color on the facade, just the lighter color.
okay. And then also, if I may, I thought I saw a reference in here to the downspouts would be shown. Am I getting that confused, or I don't, do I see them on here?
So the downspouts were included on the rendering drawing that is in your packet. Those renderings, I can grab those real fast.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
point to it, but
So if you can see on this rendering, there are currently downspouts that have been included on this plan. Exposed downspouts were approved by the governing body as one of their stipulations.
Are there downspouts on the back and those aren't shown? I guess that's where I was looking, maybe it was more at the back.
I would direct that question to the applicant.
And then one last question, if I could. Do you know what the materials of those rear decks will be made out of?
So it is going to be the same material that was previously approved. It's a hardy board material,
And the railings?
also previously approved. I can grab that material sheet in the packet.
I guess I asked because they look different to me. But
These were all of the previously approved materials that will also be utilized with this revision.
So you're saying the balconies used to be, the floor used to be a hardy board and the railing is
Yes,
this, and then you're saying that railing remains and the hardy board just gets used more?
yes. So this type of fence that I'm currently showing,
Okay.
railing, excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Ms. Ewing. At this time, I'd like to invite the applicant to come forward. Is
I'm on
there,
Zoom.
is the applicant on Zoom?
I'm on Zoom.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Hello.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Doug Weltner, and 4520 Main Street, Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay, please go ahead with your presentation.
I wanted to, I'll answer any questions that anyone would have, and I think there's been some, there seemed to be a little bit of confusion on some of these elevations. But let me first, and I've got to go look at this, but I'm fine with stipulations 1 through 7. And I'm fine with stipulation 6 that's been added to those stipulations. The only thing I would like to address first with the planning commission is this, the issue that they they wanted to see the brick material go from the bottom floor all the way up to include the eave in the area on the rear of the project. It was kind of, for lack of a better word, it's the lighter, whiter area. And I wanted to ask, Cameron, do you have the 3D model?
I do.
Can you put that 3D model up, please?
Doug, I'm afraid we don't have the ability to run SketchUp or the model on here.
Okay,
Is it a
then go
website?
back to, if you could show, go ahead and show the green where you were showing where the brick has changed, and you have the rear elevation, and you have the stairs and all that, and I'll address it off of that. Please. I need the rear elevation. So if you look at the bottom, there, the color's coming in better now. If you look at the bottom, we brought the brick, first off, I want everybody to understand that that's not a walkout basement in the top elevation. That's a walkout from the first level, okay? The basement is the garage and the utility areas. And we don't really have any intent to have those, we never had any intent to have those be walkouts. We didn't take those away. What we do have intent is, as we work with the grade, and a lot of this has to happen out in the field. You can't just do this on a, do this with a civil. And when we developed these plans originally and did this, we really were trying to have everything be a walkout from the first level of the living area, okay? Because this is in the front elevation. You'll see this is a three-story, it's a three-story building with that garage on the first floor, and we really don't want to see the basement or the basement in the rear elevation as much as we can. And we showed these stairs, but our goal is we're going to try to eliminate as much of those stairs as we can. We want to keep, and we have to have a way to get people out the back door and go to their yard. And because we have really nice backyards and they're fenced, and we want to be able to get access, and they don't want to have a walkout in their basement. And I don't like walkout basements in this situation for security issues as well. So that's kind of a little bit of quick explanation on the why you see the stairs on the back. Then secondly, we wanted to do the stucco. If you look at the lower elevation, the one that we proposed on the white area, I'm going to just call them white. We wanted to do that because you really can't see it very well in this elevation. You can see it in the 3D model, but that master bedroom window, which is the three windows, the three paneled windows, that's proud. And you can kind of see it in the elevation even above, how it sticks out from the facade. And it sticks out a foot or two, from the facade, and it's proud. It's impossible to, it's crazy trying to take the brick all the way from the ground floor all the way up to the top of the second floor and fill that eave in. And I would be more than happy to accept the brick stopping at the top of the first living level or right before the bedroom level. And you can see in the lower plan, the lower elevation, you can see we've got a nice trim piece going across there that's going across there horizontally between the living level and the bedrooms above. And it would be a natural spot to stop the brick there. And then we could still have that, still be able to accomplish building that and have that go back to the stucco that we've used elsewhere and go to stucco above that. So that would be something I would like to see the planning commission embrace. And hopefully you understand the difficulty with trying to make that piece that kind of sticks out proud. You really can see it in the top elevation better. Previous one, you can kind of see how it's proud to the rest of the facade. If you go back and look at the brick on the front of the building, it's flat all the way up, but we have a bay window. We kind of have a bay window that breaks it up, and it's just an easier installation to do that. So that would be one thing I would like to see the planning commission work with staff and agree that that's a better solution than just saying do it all brick. Somebody had a question. You want to go back to the front elevation, and I'll talk to you about the stair inside?
I'm so confused.
Cameron, can you switch that for us, please? I'm sorry, I can't do this. So there's the front elevation, as you know, and I think everybody agrees, staff included, and I think I heard some persons already speak to it on the planning commission. Getting rid of the stairs in the front yard is a great idea. I think the facade looks much better in the rendering. And I think it will look much better when we would actually complete it. That stair already existed inside. Okay, I was really not understanding what one of the members of the planning commission was talking about. You're going to see something. I don't know. I really wasn't sure what they were talking about, but it doesn't do any switchback, but it was already inside because you have to get from the garage up to the first living level. Okay, and all I did was I reversed it. It used to be the entrance to going up the stairs was at the back of the unit, and it came up. I reversed it on the inside, and it now is right at the front door, and then you go up and you land approximately in the dining room of the living level. So that stair already existed inside. All we did was reverse it and made it, and then we'll dress it up so it feels like a full, like feels like it's inside the unit. It's not going to be, never we do it like a mud room. We're going to do it like, like a real nice entry piece to the property. So when you walk in the front door, you do go upstairs, but it'll be dressed up and feel much like a very expensive home would have for an entrance. So I thought I'd clear that up. But here's a good example of, you can see the white brick is really in a flat facade going up the building in those, and we break it up with a bay window, where in the back,
Doug, we lost your audio. Still can't hear you, but it doesn't appear you're on mute. Oh, no, you are on mute.
I am?
Yep, now you're back.
Okay. What did you miss?
We don't know.
Rewind for like 30 seconds.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Mostly I was just talking about the stair. Did everybody catch that on the inside?
We got that the stairs you're moving it from the back to the front, I believe?
Yes, to meet with the front door, yes.
And it was going to take you up empty out into the dining room?
It kind of brings you into the middle of the unit instead of at the front of the unit.
Mr. Chair.
Yep. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Belzer?
Yes, so we're looking at the front facade, and I'm seeing parts that are jutting out in the same way as they are in the back. So I'm seeing there's triple windows, and then right over the garage, there's big windows, and then there's triple windows. But where the balcony is and the double window right above the front door, that's pushed back. At least in this perspective, that's how it looks to me. So I'm not really sure I understand the difference between the back not being able to be brick because it's not straight and flat?
It's not, it's
As
not
opposed to
that,
the front, it looks the same to me.
it's not that you can't do it, it's just very expensive to do it that way. And what it is, it's not only proud on the sides, okay, it's also proud at the floor level. So when it boxes out, the whole piece boxes out where that master bedroom is in the rear. So if you look at this elevation you're looking at right now, and you look at the far left of that elevation, you can see the brick is actually flat going all the way up into the eave. On the rear, right above that bay window, it actually protrudes out even at the floor level. You can kind of see it in this, but it actually comes out.
Yeah, we don't see that.
Well, you got to see the 3D model.
Any questions for the applicant? No, Commissioner Black?
Can you speak to the materials on the decks in the back?
Yeah, we're using, the approved material that we already have had approved for the previous balconies.
And
Same
the-
material.
And the stairs will be new, so what will the?
Stairs will have the same product.
And
And
that's,
then it has a aluminum rail, looks like a kind of a wrought iron rail as, for the sides.
okay, thanks.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay,
Well, I'll ask a question.
go ahead, Commissioner Hoyt.
So it is correct to say that these darker units are all brick, correct? And will remain all brick on the back facade?
No, those are all stucco, and that was what was previously approved.
So the dark is all stucco?
Yes, on the front and the rear.
Okay. Interesting. So I guess, hindsight's 20/20, but what was the thinking originally in making it brick, I guess?
Change of material. Just to give it a different look. We didn't want it to look like an apartment building. We wanted it to have some individual appeal to it. I don't think you'd like it if I just did the whole thing one color and one material. We're trying to we're going to sell these, and so we really wanted to give each one kind of a.
Sure, yeah, which I think is a great look to have it be all brick.
I think the rendering does it best. These color elevations are hard to.
Yeah. Well, I guess my concern, and this is a matter of aesthetics, but since the dark units are uniform, all stucco, and they're one color, and then you would have the next unit be all stucco, except for the upper level, which would be brick, in two different colors from the darker one. Would that look choppy? I mean, again, that's an aesthetics issue, but.
I mean, our design team likes it. And we're not just with the architect, we actually have a design team as well.
I guess, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to involve staff in this discussion.
Staff is supportive as far as the way it was originally done. A lot of times when we have a change of material, rather than just bringing it up part way and then going to another material above, a lot of times, especially like when you see like tower elements, or in these cases, they're gables, to actually bring that material all the way up to break it going across. Sometimes when we've seen it where it comes up part way and then just stops, it almost feels like it kind of cuts the building in two. So this is consistent with, what staff has recommended in the past. It was something that they were approved with on the original drawings, and so that's the reason why staff was supporting the original and not the change.
And so what's their position on the part stucco, part brick option?
I think we would like to have the all brick come up on those facades, just to bring it up all the way in those areas rather than just part way.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner McGurran?
If they were, for staff, if they were making that enhancement in the back and redrawing that, it seemed like part of the confusion was the before we were seeing was 2 floors and the after we're seeing is 3 floors. Is that an accurate statement in the pictures?
No, the before.
I think it's the
Yeah.
opposite.
The before was
actually.
3 and the
before was
after
3,
is
the
2.
after is 2.
Because this after,
Is
this
2.
after is only 2, so it's
Right.
not 3. Okay, it seems like we need to see the exact same thing in both cases, and the entire back needs to be similar to the front in the sense that it's one consistent flow, it's all brick on the back, and then I would ask, I thought one of the renderings before showed the windows or the doors that were going to walk out, if you will, but I think they told us earlier that's actually on the second floor, not on the basement.
Correct.
Okay, so why couldn't you have he doesn't want the walkout basement, is what he said, right? So we're avoiding the walkout basement. So by not having the walkout basement, you're stuck with the stairs coming off of the deck instead of it being a balcony. Accurate?
Correct.
Okay.
That's
So I
the
would
way I
agree-
was understanding it as well.
I would agree. The front is wonderful and is a huge improvement. The back needs to be more like the front. The brick needs to remain, and it'd be nice to see some kind of an improved process for the exit out of the back.
What do you mean by improved process?
I personally, I think that looks kind of trashy on the back. I don't like the exit. What we were shown before and what was presented, I guess, did not include the lower floor.
I think we need to look at the green,
Right.
green boxes.
Right.
Could we look
Yeah.
at that?
Because it seems like we're not getting the full picture.
Now, you've got to have some way to get people out the back and.
So
our
what did we
goal-
approve the first time?
Our
So-
goal is to have walkouts in all the situations, but the problem is I have land that's moving away from me, okay? And it's moving from east to west, downhill, and it's pretty severe downhill. And so we're trying to balance that, and this, we really want to eliminate as much of those stairs as possible, and we will. But we also wanted to show you if they're out of the ground because of the topography, then this is what we would look at. But I don't really see this. We really would like to see that stair about half that size, even in most instances.
What if the stairway was half that size and it was concrete and it followed the flow of the land that you're talking about? So each one might look slightly different, but you walked out of the garage level and you stepped up or stepped down, depending on the way the ground was running.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Crooks?
the director is actually putting the originally approved elevations for this development up on the projector. There was a combination of walkouts, which is in front of you with the stairs, and then there was the other where there was an exit at grade. So there was actually a combination of elevations that were approved. So the one that's in front of you here shows the walkout underneath the deck, and then there's a deck with the stairs coming down on this particular elevation.
And it also still has a door coming out of the basement?
That's correct. Yeah, this is the walkout elevation.
We would probably look at doing some doors. I'm not really that excited about it personally. I want the walkout to be from the first level, living level.
So this is what was originally approved, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
and that has brick on it. And you can kind of see in that elevation, even in both, can you go up one more? Can you slide it up a little so I can see the top one? You can kind of see how that master bedroom's a little proud, both at the floor level and at the walls. That's what we're talking about. Guys, this isn't the end of the world if you want it to be brick. We'll move on. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here but I'm not sure I agree, but it's not the end of the world.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, let's move on to discussion. Any discussion on,
Well, I think brick is, the all brick look is superior.
Yeah, I agree.
Agreed.
And it was already in a final plan.
And the improvement on the front is terrific.
I agree. Any other discussion?
So on the rear, other than the brick change that was requested, it's removing the walkout basement doors and windows at the lowest level? Is that what we're being asked for?
Except that they weren't uniformly going to be walkouts.
It's my understanding, I wasn't with the city of Leawood when this came through, but I believe that the different elevations were proposed just to kind of deal with the natural topography of the site. When it was called for that we needed the walkout basements, this floor plan, this elevation was available. When there was ability to do the at grade, then we had that one approved as well. So it was just kind of, as I got with those original plans, getting out there with the topography and being able to, as they're engineering the site, being able to determine which would be the best.
If you remember, as far as when the original plan came through, especially, for instance, the main building, that it went from 4 to 5 stories, and part of that was because it was dropping as it went to the west. And so you'd have a similar situation with those townhomes that are located on the north side.
Commissioner Block?
I don't want to belabor this, but I mean, I guess just, I don't know if the applicant explained it very well, maybe for the understanding of some of the commissioners, but how I understand it, when he says this upper floor is proud of the rest, I mean, I get a better way maybe to visualize it's cantilevered. Is that fair to the applicant?
Yes.
So, I mean, I guess maybe as a, proposed in between, and I think he was talking about cutting the brick at the lower level of that cantilever, but if the brick went all the way up to the roof line in there and only that bump out or only that cantilevered area were stucco, I don't personally think that would be a bad look. His concern, again, I hate to do his work for him, but is that it's, and Ms. Hoyt tried to ask, or Commissioner Hoyt tried to ask this question, which is, he wanted this to be cantilevered out and with brick initially, but I guess has determined that the cost is more than he had hoped for, and so now he's wanting to change, this full back facade to stucco, but I don't know that an in-between, and I think it still would be visually interesting to maybe just make these master bedrooms stucco and then make the whole facade in the back still brick. Again, just as a an in-between place, potentially.
Is that what he's proposing? It didn't sound like that
His
to me.
initial proposal, I understand it, was all stucco. And I think we've all, I think he's heard that that's not going to be the case. So I think he was coming up to this dark line at the third floor, or second floor is at the elevation. But I think it would be, I'm kind of with what's been discussed, which is I don't know that that's very attractive, and I don't like this wainscoting at the bottom where it stops, but it sounds like the grade is going to cover up most of that on a large percentage of this building, because he said that that he's going to have this with less steps on most of these, but only on a few of them have more steps. So I think if that were continued up again to the roof line, I think it would look better. But again, I'll go with the majority. I'm not set on that, but I think it still would provide a nice look.
I would agree with that. And the brick, we could take the brick up into the second floor on the left side of that proud master bedroom, and I think that would look better and would be a natural place to change that material.
So in that circumstance, would the lighter units have two different materials on that top floor, and the dark units would be one material?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Well,
we would
going-
match
go-
stucco
I'm
color.
confused. I think, Commissioner Block, I think you're saying something a little bit different than what the applicant is saying, and I'm a little bit confused. Can we put that back on there? So can we put the back facade on there so, Matt, you can explain it, what
Why-
you're
you
saying
do the
differently? I think, I don't
Well,
hear you all saying the same
the
things.
applicant's willing to go with all brick.
Yes.
So I think our question is, are we accepting that or not?
Okay, it's up to us.
Right, I would say yes, we are.
Mike, could you put what's on the overhead?
I like the all brick. Me too.
So Matt, what were you suggesting?
Which is the master bedroom? The triple
Commissioner
bedroom?
Block.
Sure, the commissioner,
You want me to go to the PowerPoint or the overhead?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think if I'm understanding the conversation correctly, so I'm going to use this end piece here. I'm going to zoom in so we can all see it a little bit better. As an example, I believe what is being said is that this area will be brick. This area with the multiple window bay is the master bedroom, and that would be the stucco piece. Am I understanding that correctly?
That was just what I said was a possibility because it's on a different plane. It's cantilevered out.
That's how I understood it, Commissioner Block, and I believe that is what the applicant is saying as well.
And his concern is that there's nothing underneath it to support that brick. So he's got to reinforce the inside of it to hold all that brick, which is expensive. So that's what I think he's trying to say.
I agree.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Weltner.
And then one more quick, I mean, so the brown and the off-white, are those on different planes? Meaning is the brown recessed and then the lighter portion is further towards us or vice versa?
Yes.
So, my only thought there is it does give it some more, again, interest with shadow lines and potentially if it's not all flat, well, I don't know. This looks like it's flat all the way across the back. I'm looking at C2.2, and it looks like it's pretty flat across the back.
Except
this overhang.
One for the front, one for the back.
In each situation, the master bedroom and that eave are proud to the facade, both at the floor level and at the wall level. And that would be the same in this dark stucco.
Right, so then this is gonna be proud, then this is flat. This is all flat. The lower level's all flat.
Correct. So with all the discussion, does anyone wish to make a motion, or do we want to have more discussion on this?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Commissioner Hoyt.
I would like to make a motion for approval of case 10-24, Leawood Village, Village Heights, request for approval of revised final plan with the 7 stipulations that were presented to us in the additional memo today.
Second?
Ms. Cricks, hold on
Mr.
just a second.
I apologize for interrupting. One of the memos that was placed on the dais was from the Public Works. Staff would like to recommend an additional stipulation where the that the applicant shall comply with the Public Works memo as provided by the City of Leawood Public Works on file with the City of Leawood Planning Services.
So would that become stipulation 7?
Stipulation 8.
I think it's 8.
Well, 7 is kind of the concluding stipulation, right?
Yeah, yes, Commissioner, we can make that stipulation number 7, and then stipulation number 8 would be, quote, "In addition to the stipulation listed in this report, the developer, property owner agrees to abide by all ordinances of the City of Leawood Development Ordinance unless the deviation has been granted, and to execute a statement acknowledging in writing that they agree to the stipulations 1 through 8.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms.
Second as
Curtis.
amended.
Second as amended. Can you?
I amend my proposal of acceptance to include the 8 stipulations that were just discussed.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoyt.
Second as amended.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner McGurran. Is there any discussion on the motion?
This is Scott. I have a question now. As we have just made this motion, does this allow the gentleman who is presenting this to be able to not have to do that brick on the top portion and allow him to do the brick on, well, about 3/4 of it and then the stucco on the bump out? I just want to make sure I hear it correctly.
No.
No, I believe the stipulation it keeps
Stipulation.
the brick.
Stipulation number 2 makes it clear that
It's all brick.
brick
It's
is
all
to
brick.
be retained.
Correct. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor of approving case 1024 as amended, please respond by signifying by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, nay.
Okay?
Case 1024 is approved unanimously.
I think Scott's at nay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Might want to ask.
Scott,
Pardon you.
Commissioner Carlsberg, did you say something?
I said nay.
Oh, nay, I'm sorry. Okay. So that is 7, 4, 1 against, with Commissioner Carlsberg voting no. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Weltner.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings up case 1524 East Village, Twin Villas, Lot 36, request for a revised final plan located south of 133rd Street and west of State Line Road. Staff have a report?
We do.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, this is case 15-24, East Village, Twin Villas, Lot 36, request for approval of a revised final plan for elevation layout changes to the Twin Villa units previously approved with Phase 1 of East Village. This application is being brought forward as a result of modifications made to the elevations of the Twin Villas from what was approved with the final plan for Phase 1 of the development. This was done at the time of governing body review. Elevations showing pitched roofs for the Twin Villas were approved with this previously approved final plan, but the elevations have been modified since that time. The project is still proposing 24 Twin Villa units and will have a minimum of a 2-car garage for each unit, as well as the potential for parking in the driveway. Some of the Twin Villa units will have the option for a 3-car garage. The proposed updates include the following: changes in height of the Twin Villa units with a maximum height of 29 foot 4 inches, which complies with the MXD height limit of 90 feet. Elevation changes, including placement of materials and general massing changes, and a small change to square footage due to layout shifts. The exterior materials previously approved with the East Village Development Design Guidelines have not changed and include cast stone, stucco, metal, stone, and composite wood siding. For roofing, the applicant is proposing the use of architectural composite shingles, which are CertainTeed Belmont AR impact-resistant shingles. Each twin villa has a basement below grade to serve as an emergency shelter. Down wall light fixtures were approved with the prior submittal for this portion of the development, and a new light fixture style is being added. The proposed sconce is rectangular, and the glass will be frosted with a black trim. Regarding landscaping, the applicant has provided a typical landscape plan for the foundation of the Twin Villas to include shrubs and other plantings. No changes are proposed for the street trees, ornamental trees, or required shrubs, which were all approved with the prior case. I do want to note there is a memo on the dais for this case to amend a few different stipulations. The first one is stipulation number 1, which removes the square footage amount. There were some conversations had as far as the garage is being included versus not the basement. So this was removed to just specify that the amount of open space that was currently approved cannot be reduced. In talking with the applicant, the overall square footage actually did reduce from what was previously approved. Stipulation number 15 is being removed. This speaks to landscaping and an approved landscape plan. These units are supposed to be for sale per the applicant, and so there's going to be some variation, the foundation plantings, different perennials, annual shrubs, different things like that. This stipulation is still in place for the street trees, ornamental trees, and shrubs. And then number 28 is being amended. It will be the new number 27 to reflect the removal of number 15. This application meets all requirements of the Leawood Development Ordinance, and staff recommends approval of case 15-24 with the stipulations listed. I would be happy to answer any questions.
So can I just ask for clarification? I'm not sure I heard you correctly. So stipulation number 1, the new stipulation, and it says, and shall not reduce the amount of open space currently approved. Did you say this plan would reduce? The plan we're seeing would reduce or would not reduce?
It should not. The
Okay.
applicant might be able to clarify those numbers a little bit better.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Any questions for staff?
Just one, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Block?
On the elevations, it says that the heights of the units have been reduced minimally, but it didn't say how much. Do you know what they were?
Not off the top of my head, I believe maybe 2 or 3 feet.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? No? Okay. At this time, we'll invite the applicant to come forward. Welcome back to the commission.
I'm glad I'm one of the able bodies that's here, since everybody else has been on Zoom. Henry Clover, Clover Architects, 8913 Penrose Lane, Suite 400, Lenexa, Kansas, 66219. Staff did a good job, and I want to thank them for working through us, because actually there was some confusion. The actual initial comment had a restriction on the square footage. The square footage actually went down like about 400 square feet total. But what we've added to this is we've added back porches that are covered. We've added a third car garage option. We've got a couple of them in the plan, but the goal was to add more of them. The stipulation on the square footage, the green space in just this area, I don't know if you remember, the whole project's got a ton of green space. But in just this area, we increased the green space by about 2,200 square feet. The comment and the goal there is to allow us to, for marketability, allow people to do additional garages. So the stipulation is to restrict that we don't decrease above the current approved green space if we add the garages. In my calculations, we can add about another 7 or 8 more. But it's awful, the whole changes were made for marketability and construction. What you originally approved were flat roofs. I don't know if you remember that. And between that and the city council, we changed it to sloped roofs. And it was, how do we get this to really work? How do we make the buildings efficient? How do we make them constructible, cost effective? Because obviously it is an issue. But it was all about working with brokers. What are the nicer amenities that people want to make them sellable? And so that's why we added the request for the additional third garage. They could be on half the units. About 12 of the units could have the third garage. But right now, the restriction that staff has put in would limit them to 9 total, I believe. So that's kind of in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions you may have, but hopefully this is easy. You want to add something?
Yeah, so we can only add.
Mr. Odo, I'm sorry, could you please put your name and address into the record?
I'm surprised you guys don't know everything. I know. Rick Odo, my business address is 15200 West 105th Terrace, Lenexa, Kansas. We can only add the optional third car garage on one side of the duplex of each one. So the max we can add is 12 of these. With the green space, we're right at 7 or 8. I'd like to be able to add that third option if people want it on all of them, if possible, up to 12. But I'm happy to stick to the 8 max if that's what you guys determine. I'm allowed to have 8 options, but it'd be really more the option of the people buying the duplexes. And I just want to satisfy their needs. So if you guys consider that, great.
And the actual difference, they're 276 square feet each, so the actual difference would be 3 times 276, so it's not a lot of square footage. And in the whole scheme of things, over the total green space that we have in the park and stuff, it's infinitesimal, but for your consideration.
Mr. Clover, are you okay with the 28 stipulations?
Yes, we are,
Okay.
as
Thank you.
modified,
As modified, thank you.
yes.
Any questions for the applicant?
Just one real quick.
Commissioner Block?
I think last time you all were before us, Mr. Odo didn't actually own the property yet, and I think that our packet here does say he's the owner of record. I just want to clarify that.
It's actually under construction right now.
I-
The roads are
I've seen
going
it.
in, the utilities are going in, so yes, he owns it.
Oh, you own it, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Clover? Any discussion on case 1524? Commissioner Block?
Yeah, I'd like to, I guess, maybe understand from staff, I don't know what the implication is if they want to add the option of a third car on all the units. I guess help me digest that and understand what that means. Is it an option under the LDO and what's been approved, or would it reduce their green space too much?
I think currently the way that we have the stipulations stated is that they would not decrease the open space at all with the garages. I think what Mr. Odo was talking about is that would allow them to do 3-car garages in all of them, except maybe 3, if I'm understanding that. Staff would actually like to see what that means. I mean, I don't have any square footages in front of me, and so if it's something that's just a few feet, that may be something that, you know, is doable, but it's hard to make that call when I don't really know what that number is at this point. And so if I need to bring it back to the Planning Commission, City Council, I'd like to have that ability to do that.
Mark, I
Chairman?
can answer because the difference, and I gave them to staff, so it was like 119,000 versus 117,000. So we increased the green space by slightly over 2,000 square feet, which each garage is 276. So our difference in just this area would be an increase of like 800 square feet, probably about close to 900, 850 to 900 square feet total. So, and wouldn't it also not apply the 5% rule?
5% is going from
probably not part of the green
final to
space, yeah.
preliminary,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
not
Okay.
as going final to final, yeah.
Okay. But it is a very small amount, and in the total scheme of things, I think our overall green space was like close to 40%, if I remember right. Do you remember?
And I think it's probably okay, but again, I would like to be able to see the plans before I'd like to have that ability to bring it back if I need to.
Okay.
So maybe to, I don't know that I got any clarification there, unfortunately. So what we're looking at today would allow you to do 12 of them, 1 per building? No.
The stipulation that they have right now, if you divide by the math, would allow us to do 7.5 additional garages.
Okay.
And we have 2, so that would mean we'd be able to do 9.5 out of 12.
Okay.
With just doing the simple math of taking what the extra green space we've added and what the difference would be by adding the 276 square foot garages.
So practically speaking, doing 9 of these would keep you at the same green
Yes.
space that you are currently.
Currently approved for it, in just this area, because it's not the entirety.
Can I
Commissioner Belzer?
So what was the impetus for in my opinion, this is a really big change from, if you look at the front facade, this is a really big change from the original to now. The whole, it's not, to me, it's not just a minor elevation change. The whole front facade has changed. So why did that?
Essentially, when this went to the governing body, if you recall, when it came to the Planning Commission, they had flat roofs on these twin villas. At the time of the governing body, there was a lot of discussion. A lot of the neighbors wanted, as far as to see pitched roofs. If you recall, there was a stipulation that was put on there that basically stated that if the city at some point amended the development ordinance to allow laminated composite shingles on multifamily, then the applicant would go ahead and they would do the sloped roofs that they were showing. And if not, they were going to come back through the process to get new elevations approved. That stipulation said that the elevations would need to look substantially what was shown at the time of governing body. When I got the elevations, I thought that they looked enough different that rather than just approving it administratively and going on, that I wanted to bring it back before the Planning Commission and governing body so they are aware of the changes that were made. And so that's the reason for the case before you tonight.
And I think there was also a question on the height. The two-story version went up like 1 foot 4 inches in height, which is actually allowed by ordinance under the percentages. The one-story with walkout went down like 4 inches. So they're very similar in height.
Any additional discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Stone?
Well, I guess if I was hearing Ms. Belzer's comment, and maybe what's confusing is in the packet, it shows the previously approved elevations, which is not the flat roof designs that were, previously approved by this group, but, and so I think she's asking why those have even changed in a drastic way.
Yeah.
As you can see from, the previous to the new.
And that's what the applicant is proposing. When I talked to him originally and I noticed that there was a difference, they indicated that, when they're actually starting to do the building plans and make the structurally to be able to make it work, that those were some of the items that they needed to change. And so they came forward with the elevations that are proposed tonight. In some regards, thinking that it also replicated as far as what was in the adjacent subdivision as far as to the north as well, to be more compatible with those. Again, we brought this case before the Planning Commission and the governing body because we want to make sure that everybody's aware as far as of the changes that were proposed, rather than approving them administratively and then they go on.
It had to do with constructability, because when you have a flat roof, you can have walls and things that don't necessarily need to line up with things that are above with slopes and hips. And it was also trying to not, I think one of the issues with a lot of slope roofs is if they miss and they don't hit, they just have things that look really odd. So we tried to make sure the roofs looked consistent and linear and lined up. And it also came about with going to brokers and finding things that people wanted and connections and additional bathrooms that we added the covered porches on the back as an option. We added the third-car garage as an option. It all had to do with make it constructible, make it buildable, make it cost-effective, because we still have to get these to work within the community because they were pushing up pretty high, and also to marketable and make it put items and elements that people wanted in it. So, but the materials are all the same. It still has the hip roofs and stuff like that. The Planning Commission didn't get to see it because it was changed at the city council level. And so that's actually what's approved, even though that's not what you saw. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And be honest with you, these are much nicer than what the original was with the slope roof, flat
This is
roofs.
what's approved, and then this is what's before us tonight. That's my issue. This is what was approved by the city council on
And
the
that's
left.
why Mark brought it to us.
Correct.
Right.
No, I
Because of the
understand
change.
that. Okay, that's why I'm unsure, because what's on the left is what was approved by the city council.
Yeah,
And what's on the right is what's before us tonight, and it's very different.
If I can just clarify, and I think you understand what's happening, you guys approved a flat roof. So city council was telling us put a pitch roof on prior to the meeting, and it was like we had no time at all. So just a few days before that, we threw a pitch roof on. We had no idea where these things were really lining up on it and where the gables and the windows and everything was out of whack. But we just, from a structural point of view, so we had to move things around. So once we start moving things around and brought in our realtors and said, hey, before we do all this again, so we had to change a few things because we hadn't had the interior. You can't do the roof without knowing your interior. we just put a roof on to get something through at that point because we had a flat roof approved. So now we have time, we want to do it right, and we want something that's sellable. So we've worked with our builder, well, I'm the builder, but with our agents and what people are wanting, and for the interior. And then we had a face that, and then we're still trying to get this in all under $850,000. Pitch roof added about $80,000 to $100,000 to the cost. And we're still trying to get this thing done in under 850, which is amazing that things are costing that much. So this is where we are, but it's still a beautiful look that will go well with the neighbors. And we already have people wanting to be able to put stuff down. I keep telling them, no, not until we get past this. So if we can get this approved, I really greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner McGurn.
A question for staff and specifically for Mark. I completely get your point of what had been approved and what is being proposed and it being a dramatic difference. How does staff feel? How do you feel about that change and whether we should be pushing back or whether we should be open-minded?
I think as far as what they proposed does look a lot like as far as surrounding homes and everything. So with regard, I don't really see a big difference there. They probably had a more unique look as far as when they put the other one on, simply because they had taller elements and that kind of thing. But what the applicant has indicated to me is that that wasn't really able to do that as far as when they started matching the walls and all that kind of stuff. And Mr. Odo is completely true that they kind of did this pretty quickly on the fly at the time of governing body, and so they showed a elevation with the pitch screws and what they thought they would look like. Now they're coming back and they said when they actually started putting pencil to paper and actually started constructing these, that they made these changes. And I think it's really kind of up to the Planning Commission and the governing body if you feel like this meets the intent as far as providing the type of units that they were asking for. It does meet the intent as far as having the pitched roofs. They definitely have done that. They've maintained the same materials that they had before, but the architecture is a little bit different, probably from the fact that before they had the flat roofs, they put the pitched roofs on, and now they're coming back with more, to me it looks like more of a traditional single-family house that you'd probably see.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Carlberg.
I think there's another change that's come up. While the original gentleman was talking, he was joined kind of ad hoc at the podium with something he said he would like to do to all the garages, but that wasn't in the material presented for tonight, which just seems to be kind of lobbed into the agenda here. And I think confuses what is being asked for and what person goes out the door with. To an extent, I felt like it was some of the work that should be done ahead of time and brought to the commission versus presented at the podium as an, oh, by the way. So I do have that concern.
Thank you, Commissioner Carlberg.
Are we into the discussion phase?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Might I make a point in the discussion? Which
Sure,
kind of
right.
piggybacks on what was just said. And that is, I don't have any problem with the basic design change. And I think it's great to be able to have an option for some people to have a three-car garage. I am not inclined, though, to cut into the green space. And so I would, I think stipulation number 1 is important to maintain. And by stipulation number 1, I mean the revised stipulation number 1, which just tried to make sure that there was no question about, it's not a matter of 1 or 2 square feet difference. It's that we don't want it to reduce. And I think it's, quite frankly, fabulous that, that there can be some options for 3-car garages, and maybe we still have a couple hundred feet more green space than we did to start with. So, that's my position.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoyt. Commissioner Stevens?
Well, I guess now I understand how the building mass and roof lines and of the units have changed and makes sense to make those work with, as you've thought through the unit plan and how the roof would work. I guess one thing that wasn't mentioned is that the approved elevations did incorporate the masonry material on all 4 elevations of the units. And now it appears like the proposed new ones, it's only on the front facade, which would be the interior street facade, and all of the other 4 facades and back facing 133rd are just stucco material. So it does seem like there's been a reduction in, you know, the amount of masonry and maybe that quality material that was previously approved on the facades.
Commissioner Stevens.
I think that's an excellent point. I had not noticed that, but that's a very interesting point. When I first looked at it, I thought we were losing something dramatic on the front elevation. And in a couple of cases, the rear elevation, I was fine with. But it just feels like, and I agree with staff, it just feels like it's a dramatic shift. And so I lean towards the scenario that it's too much. I also agree, though, with Commissioner Hoyt that having the options, the covered deck in the back and the additional third-car garage is certainly a plus. My last question of the applicant is if there is approval associated with this change, this elevation change doesn't affect any other elevations within the property?
Okay, sorry.
I'll repeat myself. Did you hear the whole conversation? Okay, so my question is, if this were to be approved and we went with the proposed elevation changes, would this be, based on everything you know today, this would be the only change? We're not beginning the cascade of additional changes on anything else within the property because this was done, are we?
No, we won't change anything else. And since I'm up, if you don't mind me asking, I really appreciate you letting me make the changes on the elevations. And I'll be real honest, we're getting pricing up over $950, and we're really trying to make these things as for sale product to be under $8, to be at the $850 mark, so we have a more viable townhouse or villa. I mean, because now we're getting, you're just too expensive for a twin villa.
To the point made earlier about
Yes.
the masonry and the brick associated with around the twin villa in the original case, do you have a little flexibility to continue to include the lower brick on the facade around the back?
I would if that's, I mean, if this is something you really want me to do, but one of the things that we are trying to do is bring in a more reasonable price point for the twin villas. And none of the homes across the street have brick brought around it.
Right.
And so we felt like this was a very fair, we're still keeping several different, or a couple of different products back there, so it doesn't look blah. And we will if that's what you're asking me to, but I really ask you to consider what the residents are wanting, and that is to be able to move in, especially the seniors we're talking to, want to be able to keep the price point as low as possible, and that would help us.
I understand your point, but at the moment, I'm a little more concerned about the hundreds of residents who fought to have this
I
not
hear you.
built. And they're the ones who are looking at the back of these twin villas.
Okay. I will do what you
I would
want me to.
propose the continuation of that, and then I would feel better. I'd love to be able to see something that looked a lot more like the original front elevation, but I understand the changes that are made in the process. But I think the point that was made earlier about the masonry being consistently used, it provides a level of quality and a look that's a little more dramatic than stucco on the three sides that the people who fought this development are looking at from across the street on 133rd. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Commissioner McGurran. Any other discussion?
So if we wanted to make that change, what's the process on that?
I think you probably include a stipulation that the percentages of the different materials had to remain the same as far as on the backs of the building. That way you have kind of a clear comparison, even though it's changed shape a little bit, the percentages would be maintained going across.
As was originally approved by
As was
the
originally
governing
approved,
body.
yeah.
Perfect. I would support that, and I would vote yay if that were the case.
Any other discussion? Would anyone like to make a motion? Someone's got to make a motion. one way or the other.
I'll make it.
Stipulation?
I motion for approval on East Village Twin Villas, Lot 36, request for approval of a revised final plan located south of 133rd Street and east of Pawnee Lane, case 1524, with the changes that were given to us in the memo on stipulations 1, 15, and 28 to be the 2 version or the revised version, and an additional stipulation added that indicates that the masonry that was originally approved by the governing body on the front, side, and rear elevations of the twin villas remain at the same percentage of masonry or brick that was approved to begin with. So we basically add that back in.
And could we call that stipulation number 29?
And that would be stipulation 29.
Is there a second?
Second,
Second, Commissioner Hoyt.
except stipulation number 15 was removed. So it would really be stipulation 27.
And you could strike my amendment to stipulation 28 because there would be 28 now.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this would be 27 and 28
So
would be
everything moves up and Commissioner McGurran's stipulation becomes number 28.
27.
No?
Becomes number 27.
27.
28
Okay.
stays the same, so we can strike the
And
last one on the
28
memo.
just says, it sticks with the original from, not what she said in
Okay.
theirs too.
All right, so we have 27 stipulations.
28.
28.
Yep.
28 including Commissioner McGurran's.
Right.
Correct.
His becomes
Correct.
27, and 28 stands as in the original memo,
Correct.
Okay.
the original report.
Commissioner, can I ask a clarifying question?
We're right in the middle of a motion.
No.
We
The
have
motion is presented.
we
And
have a
I second it.
Okay, any discussion on the motion?
Called the question.
Everyone in favor of approving case 1524 with 28 stipulations as amended with the revised stipulations, please vote by voting aye. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, nay.
Nay.
The case 1524 is approved 7-1, with Commissioner Belzer being the nay vote. Okay. Thank you, guys, appreciate it. Case 1524 is approved to the governing body. I'd like to take a 5-minute recess before we go to the case 1424.
Beats the heck out of me.
agree. It's just, and you're, it's just the distance.
Okay. All right, and I am reconvening the Planning Commission meeting. We're going on to case 1424, Leawood Development Ordinance Amendment to Section 16-2-6.4, MXD Mixed Use Development District, request for approval of an amendment to the Leawood Development Ordinance pertaining to MXD District required use ratios. Mr. Klein, do you have this one?
Actually, this is, Michelle is going to give this one.
Okay, Ms. Kirks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Michelle Cricks, Leawood Planning Department. Before I get into my presentation, I do want to draw your attention to a letter from CBRE that was placed on the dais this evening and will be entered into the the report as part of the public record. Staff received this correspondence this morning from one of the developers, and he requested that this be given to the Planning Commission and also passed on to the governing body. So, Mr. Chair, this is case 1424, which is an amendment to section 16-2-6.4 of the Leawood Development Ordinance, which is the mixed-use development district section of the code. And this amendment specifically will address, or would address, the required use ratios within the mixed-use district. In response to a letter penned by developers sent to the governing body in 2023, work sessions were held with both the Planning Commission and the City Council regarding current economic trends with office, retail, and residential demands. And the outcome of the final governing body work session in November directed staff to amend the Leawood Development Ordinance to ease the ratios of required uses in the MXD district. Developers attended the work sessions and had the opportunity to address the council and voice concerns regarding the current use ratios required in the MXD, citing demand in the current market for office space isn't as strong as it once was. And the decrease in demand for office space could hinder development in the MXD, especially with the 15% minimum office use requirement. Currently, the Leawood Development Ordinance requires not less than 15% of the total floor area be designated to residential uses, not less than 5% of the total floor area designated to retail, and not less than 15% be designated to office. With this proposal, staff is recommending an adjustment in those use percentages to have the not less than 15% of the floor area be designated for retail, and not less than 20% to be commercial, further defining then that 5% minimum office use and 5% minimum retail use. This amendment proposes to update that requirement to the MXD that developments must not provide that less than 20% of the total floor area for commercial uses. However, this amendment would prohibit that all commercial uses within that a mixed use development be solely office or solely retail, but would provide to continue would provide the more flexibility to coincide with market demands. But also the intent of this amendment is to continue to encourage a mix of uses within the MXD district. That does conclude my presentation, and I am available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cricks. Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Block.
Ms. Kirks, the memo on the dais, you said that you got that today. There's no date on it. Do you know, was this just completed here in the last day or so?
I believe so. Like I said, we just received it this morning in an email. So, yeah, I'd probably just show that as a today's date, but maybe Mr. Odo, who I believe is still here from the previous, maybe he can let us know kind of what that date should be.
And then another question. So the proposal before us is, I think, consistent with at least what we as a group discussed at our work session. I know that there was some mention of a form-based code, and I guess just remind me, it's kind of either or, right? It's not, you can't have the percentages in a form-based code, or because there's no reference, there's no change related to form-based code and what we're considering tonight. But again, it was discussed, I think, by us and also by the governing body. So I just want to make sure I understand how that would fit into this or not fit into this?
We are not proposing a form-based code at this time because that really does require a much greater overhaul of the Leawood Development Ordinance. This is, and if we were to do a form-based code, we could still do a mix of uses. That wouldn't prevent us being able to do that along with a form-based code. But a form-based code would require a much broader, a much greater in-depth overhaul of the LDO so we can incorporate form-based code elements. The amendment before you this evening kind of tackles this more immediate need and of this mix of uses. And we're looking at updating the Leawood Development Ordinance here in the future, and that could be something that we would include with a form-based code.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Franze?
do you know the amount of property in Leawood that's currently zoned MXD or is proposed to be zoned that? How much property are we talking about that's affected by this?
I do not know that number off the top of my head. Maybe, Mr. Director, do you know that number off the top of your head?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't. I can tell you as far as I'm talking with the applicant, he's primarily talking around as far as the 135th Street corridor, which runs from 133rd Street to 137th Street, from Knoll Avenue over to State Line. We've done a couple of calculations with regard to as far as the percentage that's vacant or does not have a plan on it. That's kind of varied anywhere from 14% to 22% that's left, depending on the applications that we get. Most of that is shown on the comprehensive plan as being mixed-use development. And so I would say it kind of falls within there as far as the vacant property that it would affect.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Well, I'll note that this amendment, since it is an amendment to the LDO, it requires a public hearing. So with that, I will open the public hearing for anyone that wishes to speak. We'll put a 4-minute limit on that. Please direct your responses to the commission.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address.
John Sweeney, 5217 West 116th Street, Leawood, Kansas. Excuse my appearance. There's a good reason for it, but I won't go into that tonight. I'm a commercial real estate broker. I have listings on 2 of the 4 properties that have not yet been sold to a developer. Other properties have been sold to a developer, like Rick Odo has purchased property. It seems like the city really wants mixed use or a mix of uses. I understand that. An issue that we're battling with as property owners and brokers is there's very little to no demand for mixed use on this particular corridor. We do think it places a hardship on property owners, but that does not seem to resonate with the city. I attended the meetings, the work sessions with the city council, and we talked at those meetings. We've met with the city multiple times, and one response, which was a little disturbing, I must admit, was, well, we can just wait until it happens. And frankly, I don't think that's a fair situation. Everybody has rights in the city, whether it's the residents or property owners of vacant land. There was a lot of discussion at one point about commercial nodes. Picture 135th and Mission with Price Chopper and the shops there. And for some reason, that discussion didn't go beyond, I guess, on the surface. It didn't go very far. And I'll admit, at the city council meetings, we had quite a few property owners and representatives there. And I would say that some of my colleagues are actually okay with a 5 to 7% commercial component on the various parcels. But I think, myself, I think that's more of a compromise position because I don't think they believe you can get it down to less than that. So it kind of begs the question, why not let the market decide what it should be? The 135th Street corridor in Leawood, for the most part, is not a really good location for office and/or retail. I've been doing this over 40 years. I'm a Leawood resident, have been for 25 years. I'm on the Leawood Executive Committee for the EDC. So I'm involved. It's more of a tweener. If you can think about millions of square feet to the east of retail and office, to the east, west, and north, I mean, it's significant. And those are the better locations for that. So when you think about it, you got a lot of value real estate, value type retailers at State Line, at Antioch, higher end retail at Nolan Metcalf, and then again north to 119th and Road and all. And for office, there's virtually no demand. The vacancy rate is over 20% in South Johnson County. I'll close my comments with a couple comments on the approval of, I mean, think about this, the Aventino residential neighborhood. I don't disagree with that being approved. I thought it was a very good approval. I have a listing of an office building on 137th and Row in the back, surrounded by houses, and it's not easy.
Sir, I'm sorry.
There's some objections.
Could you please sum it up? Your time's expired.
Oh, okay, I'll finish up. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. If it's a different standard, if Aventino was approved, but yet we're being held to a different standard. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Mr. Odo, welcome back.
Welcome back. Rick Odo. As you know, all the developers in the area want the required amount of the office retail reduced. We don't think we can all be wrong. If we could build the additional retail and office, we would, because it's more profitable than residential. We keep that in mind, and yet we're still afraid to do it. I just commissioned the report you see there from CBRE because at a recent city council meeting, some of the council members questioned the viability of the highest and best use analysis report that Bob Rainier commissioned back in June of 2019 by RCL to see if it was still accurate since COVID. Once again, that's why I commissioned it, and I just got it yesterday. As you can tell, there's very similar conclusions as the other two reports, because there's another one done before that. There's not a need for any office space. There's very little need for retail. However, there is a need for some drive-throughs and quick-serve restaurants. Yes, single family is viable, but it's not a highest and best use, and it's not viable along 135th Street, but is a viable buffer at 133rd and 137th, but nobody wants to put $1.5 million, $2 million home along 135th Street. Or State Line. However, there's a huge demand still for upscale multifamily and senior living. So I'm going to read some of the highlights quickly. I'm going to skip over that. So single family is not the best because no one wants to spend $1.5 million to $2 million 10 feet from a major street like State Line or the soon-to-be 6-lane 135th Street. There is need for a little bit of retail. However, most of the needs have been met within the 3-mile radius at previous places we talked about, 135th and Metcalf, 119th and Metcalf, 119th between Row and Knoll, the Missouri along State Line from 122nd, 132nd all the way to 137th Street. Furthermore, there's an abundance of available retail space in this area. To illustrate the lack of demand for retail, the former Hy-Vee grocery store at 127th and State Line never re-rented and was converted to a school due to lack of demand. If population would increase, it could possibly ask for a little bit more retail, but not as much as is being required at the 20%. Office, in short, is dead. There's 3.5 million square feet of vacant space in southern Johnson County. Of the Class A 23% is vacant. That's 2.1 million square feet of vacant. There's an abundance of vacant space. In addition to that, there's another 10 to 15% that people are paying rent on that aren't being used. It's going to go vacant once their leases are up. That would be an additional million square feet of office space in southern Johnson County. The 135th Street corridor has unsuccessfully tried to build up the office environment for the last 40 years. We've mentioned places at Aventino, in front of Church and Nativity, or Church Resurrection, and that the new office space for a building would be $50 to $60 a square foot to cover the P&I on the building, yet currently built stuff is at $28 to $22. You can't compete with that. So lenders are unwilling to make any loans on office buildings. I want to put all this in perspective. Did you know that Town Center, right across the street, has 650,000 square feet of space? That includes Macy's, Dick's, AMC Theaters, and all the other outlets, 650,000 square feet. On my site alone, I'm required to build 353,000 square feet of office retail. If you extrapolate what I have to build on mine on down from State Line to Knoll on all the sites like that, we'd have to build an additional 2.5 million square feet of office retail. That's 3 times more than what you have across the street. That's how much office retail you're asking us to build. I don't think you guys realize the size and the scope of what 20% is on that corridor. So because that is 2.5 million square feet of additional space, I believe is too much.
Please finish up for us.
I'm begging you to please lower the requirement to something feasible like 5 to 7%, please.
Okay. Thank you.
My name is Bob Renier, 9353 Cedar Reserve Drive, Prairie Village, Kansas. I have been in front of you guys for quite a while. I was the fellow that sold the property to Mr. Odo and have been a Leawood resident for 45 years until 2 years ago, or 18 months ago, when we moved to the Meadowbrook Park subdivision. And I got 3 things I wanted to talk about. First of all, Rick reference this report, this RCL CO report. It is dated, it is June 19th of 2019, but I was interested to reflect that when I saw Mr. Stingley's letter, you take those numbers and you compare them to this report, which is 206 pages long. It's an extensive report, and I'm going to send an electric copy to Mr. Klein, and I would hope that he would share it with the rest of this, because it's a really good reference document. I mean, it tells a lot about the history of southern Johnson County, and so it's a good document. I'd like to make sure that all of you have the availability of having that. I think I maybe have sent it to you twice before, but I'm going to send it to you again. The second thing is that when you really look at, when you talk about zoning and you know, every piece of property, every site, every location, 135th and State Line is a hell of a lot different from 135th and Antioch, or 135th and Metcalf, or 135th and Knoll. You can't just, you know, putting percentages, which are reasonably arbitrary, and from my perspective, I think is a huge mistake. You look at all the other cities around, to my knowledge, and I'd be happy to somebody prove me wrong, I don't think there's a you know, percentage number in any of the other cities. They look at it, they all have mixed use, but they look at it based on the site, and I think that's really critical. So I don't think you should have any percentages, but you know, lower numbers probably makes it more acceptable to developers on a general rule. So that is, those are the first 2 things. The third thing I was just thinking about when I was sitting back there, I live in Meadowbrook Park. I'm sure most of you are aware of Meadowbrook Park, have been there taking your kids to the park. It's a beautiful development. I would still, my druthers, I'd still be living in Leawood, but my roommate, she says we're moving to Meadowbrook, and so that's what we did. But you know, the interesting thing, and this is, think about this. I love Meadowbrook. I think it's a beautiful place. I think it would be beautiful to take that exact thing and put it in Leawood. Under your ordinance, you couldn't put Meadowbrook in Leawood because it wouldn't fit your percentages. Think about that. You're keeping yourself from really putting in really quality developments that might look a little different, but fit the neighborhood better. I think you're making a mistake. And I'm bringing that up, and I would encourage you to think long and hard about that, because I think what you're doing is you're restricting yourself from being able to do the best that you can for the city of Leawood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Renier. I do not see anyone on Zoom. Anyone else in the room would like to speak? With that, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chair, I move for closure of the public hearing.
Commissioner Blocks, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Hoyt. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. That brings us up to discussion of case 1424. Anyone like to?
I'd like to applaud what Mr. Renier said. I think we need to think long and hard about that. I think somehow we have to encourage development along 135th Street that hasn't occurred for 30 or 40 years. We would have all loved to have taken the 114 or 116 acres that Mr. Renier owned and put Meadowbrook right in there. That would have been fabulous. We would have been thrilled with that. But if it would have come back to the Leawood Development Ordinance that we couldn't do that would be shocking and a shame, in my opinion. I'd love to have a development like that somewhere. And we just gave up, our last best hope for that size of property.
Thank you, Commissioner McGurran. Anyone else?
Well,
Mr.
Commissioner
Chair.
Hoyt?
I mean, I don't disagree with what you said, although Meadowbrook is very unique, and Johnson County owns that park. It was a very arduous process to partner on that.
Prairie Village bought the park and then donated it to the county?
It is a Johnson County park.
Yes. Prairie Village issued bonds to
Yeah.
pay for it and then donated it.
Right.
As I understand it.
Yeah, I don't know, but, I guess my point is that I would love for us to have Meadowbrook too, but I think we have to think about the specific pieces of property that we have. And I certainly don't disagree with the concept that every piece of property is unique, though.
Right. I personally liked the idea that we had, 4.5 years ago or something, and when we sat out at the golf course and somebody had gone to an extensive amount of work and gone to Denver and gone to Lee Summit and maybe up somewhere north, and they plopped a development down on a piece of property that was sitting on 135th Street, and it fit in perfectly. And it had that development that brought a whole new perspective on housing to the city of Leawood. And it had a central park area and a central, small central community area, maybe with a coffee shop or something like that. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see us take from Pawnee to State Line, and from Fontana to, what would it be, Rowe or Knoll? I'm forgetting how far we go.
Up to Knoll.
Yeah, Knoll. And make all that residential, and make the portion that sits in the middle that we called out, the nodes concept, with everything around 135th and Mission Road being what we'd hoped for the last 4 decades, and narrow our focus so that it made it possible to finish out. And that might take another 10 years or more. Who knows?
Commissioner Block?
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Carlberg.
I like the things I'm hearing around here, and I think we may be at a turning point to get rid of some of these numbers. Whether we get rid of them entirely or not, I'm not quite sure, but I do think the things I've heard my fellow commissioners say is we're at a point where we want to have some of the things that we've seen successful in other areas. I would say, but we don't want to be those other areas. We do have things that I think can be rather specific for our uses. And I think it takes more creativity on our part to go out and do that. And I think that would be a very healthy step. At the same time, as we've heard these folks who've given a lot of thought to the presentations, I want to make sure we don't lose fact that we heard from one narrow segment of a business community. These are developers. They're going to look at things as a developer looks at them. They got a report from a developer company. Let's make sure we get good input from across our population so that we truly reflect the wishes of our citizens. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Carlberg. Commissioner Black.
I too like the idea of a Meadowbrook being on 135th Street, but I don't know if that's reality. You know, based on this CBRE memo, you know, even it sounds like the Aventino has been hard to sell, at least in the initial stages. So I don't know that, you know, our vision potentially could be, you know, you just put nice homes all along the corridor, but I don't know if that's what the development community is looking for. I think what I heard was multifamily. And I think that if you take off all these restrictions, you're going to get a bunch of apartments. And I don't think, you know, going through the East Village scenario, you know, and there are very few in the city that want that, maybe besides, as Commissioner Carlberg said, you know, this small community of folks, and I do appreciate their input, but I don't think that that's what the city wants. And I hate to say it, but, you know, I think that, you know, I'm at least in the camp of I'd rather wait than get, you know, a corridor lined with, you know, I guess we've taken it down to 60 feet, you know, apartment buildings along here in quick serves. You know, that might be the demand today, but, you know, this is kind of our front door, even though it's not, you know, doesn't have the best highway access, and I get that maybe there won't be, you know, what the community plan envisioned 12 years ago, whatever that was, that there'd be, you know, headquarters, you know, right on the corridor, and then, you know, and scaled down from there to some family, smaller family homes, or duplexes, townhomes, that kind of thing. But I don't know. I think that the percentages proposed are a good in-between. You know, maybe we revisit this in a year or two, whatever the case is, if you know, but, you know, one of the members of the audience, you know, it did take on the East Village project, you know, with the current requirements, which were much higher than what we're proposing. So I think this is a good step in the right direction to try to flesh out some more potential interest, you know, whether it's in this room or beyond. But I think at least we're heading the right path with what we have before us tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Black. Any other comments? Good. I would like to say something, make my comments known. We have a 135th Street Community Plan, which was put in a lot of effort into that, and it's old, all right? It's pre-pandemic. A lot of things have changed since then, and I understand that. But I think the city still wants a mixed-use type development on 135th Street. It's not Meadowbrook, which is in the middle of a residential area, basically. This is a commercial highway, basically. And we have to, you know, talk about office, retail, and residential being part of that mix. It's been successful. We've lowered our thresholds before on State Line Road with Leawood Village. They made that work by lowering those percentages. And I think that we're doing it in the right direction, going and lowering our percentages to try to get a little movement. And I'm like Commissioner Block. We only have one good shot at this area. And I don't mind taking baby steps instead of just taking big, huge, giant steps and wiping everything out, what we've done. Aventino is completely different. That was a distressed property, which we helped each other, I think, develop that property. And why I'm not in favor of housing right on 135th Street, it is what it is, and I hope they are successful. But that was a property that was in bankruptcy, and we helped the developer out on that to put something there. I will say, we'll challenge the city council in that this is a great time with all the changes going on at the city council. Let's revisit the 135th Street Community Plan. I think this is an opportune time with two people from the city, from the Planning Commission on there to kind of regenerate interest in that and revise it. It's been 10, 15 years. Things have completely changed in that time period, so now I think would be a good time to kind of get together and see what else can we do with this 135th Street Community Plan and update it. So those are my 2 cents. Any other comments, Commissioner Hoyt?
Well, and I think that sending this on to the city council brings up the issue too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we vote to pass this on to them, then they're going to be ultimately the ones who look at it.
Any other comments? Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Black.
I move for approval of case 1424 Leawood Development Ordinance Amendment to Section 16-2-6-4 Mixed Use Development District.
Second.
Required ratios,
Oh, sorry.
required use ratio, sorry.
That's okay. I'm seconding it.
Commissioner Hoyt seconds. Any further, any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor of approving case 1424, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Nays? Nope. Case 1424 is unanimously passed to the City Council. With that, Mark, let me ask you about a work session on February 13th. I know we have some backlog work session items. Are we going to meet that night?
Yes, we do want to meet that night. And I think we have a lot of good discussion that we can have that night. And so we look forward to doing that. And some of it relates to, as far as what we're talking about tonight, some of it actually relates to some of the generators that we talked about as well. So I think it should be, it should be a lot of good discussion.
Okay. All right, so mark on your calendars, work session Tuesday, February 13th. I just want to point out Michelle Kirks is in Leadership Leawood in the first class ever. So she's representing the city on that. I mentioned to her that I have a coworker that's also doing it. So I'll be interested to get feedback from both individuals on that. Okay. The other item was we also have the NPC National Planning Conference 24 in Minneapolis in April. I'm committed to going. If anyone else, we have, what, 25 spots or something?
Yeah, four places for planning commissioners. I did check with Debbie, and so far I think you're the only one that we've heard from that can go. So still open. So if you want to go, please contact us.
Is there any staff going?
Actually, we're still working through that.
Where's it next year?
It's in Denver next year.
Nice. Don't diss Minneapolis.
After that, it's Detroit.
As I've gone previously to these conferences, there are fascinating conferences. The workshops and the sessions and just talking to other people in the planning. I'll never forget a couple years ago, I went to New Orleans and I'm on a bus with this guy from California and they asked me, do you guys have any water issues? I'm like, yeah, in the spring it floods. And obviously he was talking about the drought in California and it was just kind of an interesting moment of, what concerns us versus someone else in another part of the country. And it just, I find it fascinating. So, anyways. Anything else?
Nope, that's all I have.
Okay, we're adjourned until February 13th. Thank you, everyone, for a fun meeting, and congratulations to our newest commissioner.